Welcome to another episode of DWTC, where we discuss topics that help you as a professional. And today we are talking to owners, leaders, and HR folks specifically. Now, many of us have seen and felt the need to focus internally on upskilling. Recruitment can be tough, and in the current state of the economy, many employers and employees are hunkering down, and employees are anticipated to stay in place through the end of the election cycle. But that doesn't mean you don't have needs in your organization. So what do we do? And for those of you who aren't hip on the HR lingo, what the heck is upskilling? So upskilling refers to the process of teaching current employees new skills or enhancing their existing skills to help them better perform in their current roles or to prepare them for future roles within the organization. This is obviously something we should always be doing, but right now it is a super hot topic. So the goal of upskilling is to keep the workforce adaptable, competitive, and capable of meeting the changing demands of the business and of the industry. So let's talk about the key aspects of upskilling. First is focusing on the current workforce. So upskilling targets employees who are already part of the organization, helping them develop competencies that align with the company's evolving needs. Next key aspect is enhancing existing skills. It often includes building upon the skills that employees already have, making them more proficient or helping them gain expertise in certain areas. Next key area is adapting to technological changes. So as technology evolves, upskilling is crucial for ensuring that employees are familiar with the latest tools, software, and processes that can improve efficiency and productivity. Next is filling skill gaps. So organizations are using upskilling to address skill gaps within their teams, ensuring that employees are equipped to handle new challenges and maybe expanding responsibilities. Next is career growth and retention. So upskilling provides employees with opportunities for career development, which can increase job satisfaction and retention. Employees are more likely to stay with an organization that is intentionally investing in their growth. And then last key aspect is continuous learning. Upskilling is part of a culture of continuous learning where employees are encouraged to keep learning and developing their skills throughout their careers. So I'm going to give you a few examples of upskilling initiatives that you might already have or might want to develop in your organization. So the first is training programs. This means offering workshops, courses, and certifications that can help employees learn new skills related to their role. Now, one aspect of this could be e-learning. So providing online access to learning platforms where employees can take courses at their own pace. Many of you have human resource information systems or HRIS systems or HR payroll systems. And a lot of these platforms have a learning and development or training and development arm to them. So you might talk to your salesperson about what's available that you're not taking advantage of and what the cost is for that, because it might be as simple as giving them access to some online e-learning modules. Next would be cross-training, allowing employees to learn skills from different departments or roles to broaden their capabilities. This is a fairly simple program to set up, and you'd be surprised how, fulfilling this would be to an employee. Next is mentorship, pairing employees with mentors who can guide them in developing new skills and navigating their career paths. And I talked about this about mentoring on a previous episode of the pod. And a lot of times we don't want to do mentoring programs, or we think we don't want to do mentoring programs because of the time that it takes and how leaders already have a ton of meetings and a ton of obligations. But peer mentoring programs are very powerful and something that you might want to consider. And lastly, workshops and seminars. So organizing events that focus on emerging trends, new technologies, or industry-specific skills. By investing in upskilling, organizations can ensure their workforce remains agile and capable of meeting future challenges, while employees benefit from increased competence, which also means increased confidence and career opportunities. So how do we determine if you have inadequate training and development opportunities in your organization? This involves assessing several key indicators. I'll give you kind of a peek behind the curtain on how we do it at my consulting company, Salt and Light. There are 9 primary ways that we assess training and development opportunities. The first is through employee feedback and satisfaction scores. If you're not doing an annual employee satisfaction or employee engagement survey, I highly recommend you do. And the best way to do it, and I'm not just saying this because I do this at my company, but just because of trust in organizations and the desire to get transparent information, bringing in a third party to conduct this is typically the best. So surveys and feedback. We want to conduct regular employee surveys or gather feedback through one-on-one meetings. If employees frequently express dissatisfaction with the available training programs or feel unprepared for their roles, it could indicate inadequacies. And if they are expressing dissatisfaction, you're kind of far gone at that point. If an employee is actually bringing it up, you need to formalize your process. You can also do this through exit interviews. Now, this is on the backside of the process, but review feedback from exit interviews. Departing employees often provide candid insights into why they are leaving, and a lack of development opportunities might be a recurring theme. I see that with a lot of my clients. It's an area of focus. Okay, the next thing we can do is take a look at skill gaps and performance issues. So we can do this through a couple of different things. One is through performance reviews. Another is through skills assessment. So analyzing performance review data to identify if there are common areas where employees are underperforming. Consistent skill gaps across teams may point to insufficient training. What I usually do when I am revamping a client's performance review process is I take we put in a 5-point scale, we go through my new ratings, I implement it with their values. But on the backside, after the employees have already been scored, so there's a lot of steps to the process first, but after the employees have all been scored, I like to take all of that data and throw it into just a simple Excel spreadsheet of every single category and where every single employee scored on a 1 to 5 scale rating in each of the areas. So then if you see consistently across the board in this area of our values or this area of responsibilities, we're having low scores, we know right then and there, boom, we're creating training and development in that area. We also need to conduct skills assessments to determine if employees have the necessary competencies to meet current or future job demands. A noticeable skill gap between required and existing skills can signal the need for better training programs. Another indicator would be high turnover or low retention rates. So we can do turnover analysis for this, or we can analyze our retention rates. So high turnover, especially among your talented employees, may be a sign that they do not see growth opportunities within the organization. This can often be traced back to inadequate training and development options. And then low retention rate, particularly among newer employees, might indicate that they do not feel sufficiently trained or supported to succeed in their roles. And what I like to say just in general, if somebody falls out in their first, let's say 90 days to 6 months, that was poor hiring and poor onboarding. If it's 6 months to 2 years, then that's usually their supervisor. So you can kind of, in general, track those back. Fourth way to determine this is if there are limited career advancement opportunities. So we're going to look at promotion patterns and career pathing. So if employees are rarely promoted from within, or if promotions are typically given only to external candidates, this could suggest that internal development is lacking. I'm also going to assess to see if there are clear career paths as outlined and communicated to employees. Without visible paths for advancement, employees may feel there's no point in further developing their skills. And I would say a lot of the clients that I run across, they'll say or the owner or the leadership team, they'll say, well, yeah, obviously, if an employee is this role, then they could get to this role. But have you ever created just a simple visual document saying, here's this role, here's what it takes to succeed in this role. Here is the next step up role, and here's what it takes to succeed in that role. So here's the gaps. And so these are the areas that you need to be focusing on if you want to be considered for advancement. Just something as simple as a 1-pager document that you can send out to employees makes them clear that there are career advancement opportunities. So a lot of times you've got these things in your organization, you've got performance reviews, you're just not taking a look at where everyone's scoring, or you know how an employee can grow through your organization, but maybe an employee doesn't have a visual for it. So a lot of these things are pretty simple fixes. We're just memorializing some of your processes. And again, I know this takes time. That's why a lot of times people bring in consultants just to whip this up. Fifth thing I'm going to look at are outdated or irrelevant training programs. I'm going to look at content relevance and training frequency if you have training programs at all. So I'm going to review the content of current training programs to ensure they're up to date and aligned with industry standards. Outdated or irrelevant training material is a clear sign of inadequate development opportunities. I'm also going to check how often training programs are being updated and offered. If training is infrequent or only available during onboarding, it might not be sufficient to support ongoing employee development. With one of my clients recently, we put a quarterly approach in place. And honestly, it was a very simple approach, but people feel really excited. And when I'm doing interviews with their candidates or when I'm doing onboarding, people are so pumped about this. And it's a very simple process. We broke it down by quarter. So out of the quarter, the first month, we have external vendors come in and train. The second month, we identify an internal employee who can train their peers. And the third month, we go offsite and do a team building thing. We talked about trust one of the times. We just had fun one of the months. We went over personality assessments one of the months. So that's another developmental opportunity. It was really simple, but it formalized or memorialized the process. And so it made people feel like, okay, they care about my development and my growth. The sixth thing I'm going to take a look at is your budget or resources for training. So your budget allocation or access to training. I would review your organization's budget allocation for training and development. A low or stagnant budget may indicate that you as an organization do not prioritize or adequately support employee development. And if it's like ad hoc and changes every single year, let's just get some intentionality to it. I would probably say, let's take a look at your last 3 years and have your accountant send me over like the bucket on the P&L that's toward training development, maybe subscriptions, licenses, certifications. I look at all of that and say, okay, here is your budget. You actually probably have one, even if you feel like you don't. So here's the bucket. And then let's say, do we want to increase that by 10% year over year? Or what do we want to look at to make sure we're investing in this? And then let's just tell our employees, this is the budget amount. Or if you're not comfortable yet sharing that this is the budget amount, just share that you have a budgeted amount and that this year you increased it by X%. It doesn't really matter what the number is. It matters that you're showing intentionality with the investment. And then also, I'd want to consider if your employees have easy access to training resources such as online courses, workshops, or certifications. Limited access can stifle their growth and development. And so what training do you have? Even if it's just on a SharePoint or a Google Drive, what training is available to them? Next, I take a look at, do you have low engagement in your training program? So I'm looking at participation rates and then feedback on training. And if you don't collect feedback on training, we want to implement that. We'd analyze the participation rates in existing training programs. So low engagement can indicate that the programs are either not seen as valuable or they're poorly executed on. And then I'd collect feedback specifically on the training programs you have offered. And if employees find the programs unhelpful or irrelevant, obviously it suggests a need for improvement. You have to first conduct the surveys to get the feedback though. Next, we take a look at a potential lack of mentorship or coaching opportunities. So we look to see if you have a mentorship program and we look at your general leadership development. So first evaluating whether there are formal or informal mentorship programs in place. A lack of these opportunities can limit career growth. And then we'd also assess if there are programs specifically designed to develop future leaders within the organization. Do you have succession plans, things like that? Without leadership training, employees may feel like they cannot advance. Okay, ninth way I would evaluate this is taking a look to see if you have any failure when it comes to meeting your business goals. I'm looking at alignment with business strategy and innovation and adaptability. So I'd look to determine if the current training programs are aligned with your organization's strategic goals. If the business is struggling to meet any objectives, it could be due in part to inadequate employee training. I'd also consider your organization's ability to innovate and adapt to changes. A lack of training and development can hinder this adaptability as well. So by systematically evaluating these areas, you can identify whether your organization provides adequate training and development opportunities, or if there's room for improvement, a focus on upskilling. So if an organization identifies inadequate training and development opportunities, or if we come in and we help you identify that, there are several steps that you can take to address these issues effectively. So here's a 10-step comprehensive approach. The first thing is you can conduct a training needs assessment, or a firm like mine can come in and do this. So we're going to identify skill gaps and make sure we're aligning with business goals. So performing a thorough assessment to identify current and future skill gaps within your organization is a must. This can involve surveys, interviews, performance data analysis, things like we've already discussed. Then I would ensure that the identified training needs are aligned with the, let's say, annual 3-year, 5-year, long-term organization strategic objectives, helping to support the overall business growth. Because obviously, while we care about our employees' growth and development opportunities, if it's not tied to the overall business needs, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Next, we're going to enhance your training programs. And we're going to do this by updating your content, diversifying your learning formats, and give regular refreshers. So we're going to revise and update your training materials to ensure they are relevant, engaging, and aligned with industry best practices. We're going to incorporate the latest tools, technologies, and methodologies. There's a couple of things that I would recommend just out the gate. If you've got out of date content, I would utilize a tool like OpenAI, ChatGPT to help you modernize those. And if you've got let's say your PowerPoints in old school PowerPoint, maybe consider refreshing those. I use a tool called Canvas. So many people do. It makes a person who's not good at branding and marketing look a little bit better. And so just using a couple of those free, simple tools out there. And of course, there's more advanced ways to do this as well. We're also going to offer training in various formats, including online courses, in-person workshops, webinars, and interactive sessions to cater to different learning styles and needs. We can't have all of our training in one way. And then we're going to implement regular refresher courses and continuous learning opportunities to keep employees' skills sharp and up to date. I'm sure you all have heard it. It takes us 7 times to hear something before we can totally soak it in. So why in the Wild West would we think that we can train on something once and then we're done with that? It's a continual process. Next thing we're going to do, and I mentioned this a little bit before, but we're going to increase or develop our access to learning resources. We want to talk about an LMS for you, which is a learning management system, on-demand training, and educational reimbursement opportunities. So I'm going to recommend that you invest in a robust learning management system to centralize training resources, making it easier for employees to access learning materials anytime, anywhere. So many organizations are going to say, I don't have a dedicated trainer, and so we can't do a program like this. And I would argue that's not true. I just developed a training program for a construction company that's a client of mine. I essentially laid out everything that I felt like they needed for training, and that was based on performance reviews and assessments and a survey that I had done. So I developed what all the content should be. I built outlines for those, got those approved, wrote the content, and then worked with the owner and the HR individual to talk about who could train on each of these. And then I, of course, built the presentations in Canva. So we're a lot further than we were. And they don't have a dedicated trainer at this organization. We're going to use team leads, superintendents, HR, accounting, the COO, the CEO, and then we'll probably do some outsource work with my team at Salt and Light. But all together, we don't have a dedicated training person, but what we've got is a training program and a number of people who are executing on that. But the next step would be, if you don't have someone coming alongside you and helping you build out those programs, is just to use that HRIS, like I mentioned earlier, whatever your HR payroll system is, see if they have a built-in learning management system that you can utilize, and you can identify for each role what type of training they would need. You can put that on required tracks, optional tracks. There's tons of opportunity in there. You could even build in a certificate system to reward them when they hit a certain amount of trainings. There's a ton that you can do to get a ton of mileage, I guess I would say, without having a dedicated trainer. We also want to provide access to on-demand learning resources, such as those online courses, webinars, and tutorials, allowing employees to learn at their own pace. And so whether that is you building out some training inside of SharePoint that are maybe videos or screen shares, the next time you bring a new hire into your organization, literally just get you can get a free Loom subscription, which is a tool that I use, or there's paid subscriptions that you can use in there as well, and have an employee while they're teaching do a screen share, and then use AI from the screen share and create a work instruction. And now you've got a training program up and running. Also, maybe consider offering tuition reimbursement programs or financial support for external training, certifications, or further organizational education. So I had a financial services organization that I was working with, and I was putting together their benefits package. And the owner was like, we'll reimburse for training. They just need to let us know what they need. And my feedback to her was this: that's awesome for an employee who feels confident to advocate for themselves. But so many of our employees, if they don't have something to think through, they don't even know where to start, and they don't want to come across as too presumptuous. And so they just don't ask. And so what we need to do is say, each year, for an example, each year, every employee at this level gets up to $5,000 reimbursement for certifications, subscriptions, continuing education, whatever that is. Every employee at this level gets $3,500, whatever that looks like. And don't feel bad about saying, and then if you want to use that benefit, we'll just have you sign a quick contract that states that if you leave prior to 2 years after completing that certification course or whatever it is, then you have to reimburse at certain rate or whatever. Like you can absolutely put those things in place because I get it. It's money out the door, but honestly, it's money helping your organization get better because your people are skill developing, but put whatever you need to in place to make you feel good about that. The next thing we're going to do is develop clear career pathways. So we're going to look at career development plans, internal promotion policies, and skill mapping. So work with employees. This could be one-on-one or per job description title, but working with them to create personalized career paths and development plans that outline their potential path for growth and advancement within the organization. And I mentioned this earlier, but sometimes it's just as simple as a one-page document that shows this is where you're at and this is where you can go. But I also recommend at the end of a performance review process, either during the once a year process, or let's say you do a formal process once a year and then off cycle, you do a more informal one. You talk to that employee about like, okay, here's where you're at. What are your goals over the next 1, 3, and 5 years? And then I want to help you put a plan in place to help you get there. We're going to establish and communicate policies that prioritize internal promotions, giving employees a clear understanding of how they can advance their careers within the organization. And then I'd also recommend creating skill maps for each role to help employees understand the competencies required for advancement and guide their learning efforts based on that. Next thing we'd likely recommend is implementing mentorship and coaching programs. So there's a few things here: mentorship programs, coaching opportunities, and peer learning groups. So with the mentorship program, this is establishing a formal program where more experienced employees can guide and support less experienced colleagues. That fosters, of course, knowledge sharing and career development. But if we're talking about peer learning or peer mentorship, you can encourage peer-to-peer learning by creating communities of practice or learning circles where employees can share knowledge and learn from each other, book clubs, things like that. Those are great opportunities. And as long as they're facilitated by the organization, that's a benefit that you offer. And then I also recommend you consider providing access to professional coaching services to help employees develop leadership skills, overcome challenges, and reach their full potential. Especially, let's say you've got a mid-level manager and you're interested in them for a director level role, or you've got a director that you're interested in for an executive level role, or you've got an entry level employee that you think could be a supervisor, whatever it is. If you feel like that is an individual who's aligned with your values and on the right track, but they're just missing something and you're not sure how to provide it for them, if you pay a coach to come alongside them, you are going to get a ton of traction out of that. And the literal worst thing that can happen is that person somehow magically figures out, while you are investing in them financially and professionally, that they belong elsewhere. That would be a very sad day. But first of all, that probably won't happen because you're investing in them and showing them that you care. But if it does happen, better now than later, than you promoting them into another role and then they leave you. So all of these programs are super important. Next, we're going to try to make sure that you're fostering a learning culture. So we're going to encourage continuous learning. We're going to have leadership involvement, and then make sure that we've got time for learning. And this one's a big one. So we want to promote a culture where continuous learning is valued and encouraged. We do this by recognizing and rewarding employees who actively pursue development opportunities. We're also going to ensure that leaders at all levels are modeling the importance of learning and development by participating in training themselves and encouraging their teams to do the same. I have had so many leaders who have been like, that's good for them, but I don't have time. And I just want to laugh at that, because what I want to say is, then don't be the leader. Just don't be the leader. If you think that you have learned everything and you have no place to grow, do not be a leader. That's setting a horrible example, honestly. And if you're like, well, I'm so stinking busy that it must be nice to be able to go to a conference, or it must be nice, like, we've got a time management issue. Again, that's a shortcoming for you as a leader. So we need to be able to carve out the time for our own learning and development, because I'm promising you this. If you send your employees, let's say you send your whole team to a conference or a learning opportunity or an online training, whatever that is, when they are listening, I guarantee you, even if you are a really good leader, that there are going to be things that come up and your employees are going to be like, I wish so-and-so heard that. I wish my leader had heard this. Like, this is a message that I wish my leader could hear. And they're going to talk about it behind your back. We all have shortcomings. We all have shortcomings. We all need to be developing in our leadership. And so speaking of time management, we want to allocate time during working hours, specifically for learning and development opportunities, ensuring employees have the opportunity to grow without sacrificing their job responsibilities. Next thing we're going to do is allocate sufficient budget dollar amounts and resources. So I mentioned before that if I see that you don't have a budget associated, I'm going to look at your last 3 years because you have spent on this in some way, shape, or form. Might not be as much as an amount that you're proud of, but you spent something on it. So we're going to make sure that we've got increased investment. We're going to look at partnership opportunities and a dedicated team. So we want to reevaluate and increase the budget allocated for training and development to ensure that adequate resources are available for high quality programs. We're not just checking the box here. We're truly invested in our employees and helping them grow. We want to partner with educational institutions, industry experts, or training providers to deliver specialized programs that meet the unique needs of your organization. And there are so many places that you can find this. You just need to do some searching. And if you're like, I literally don't even know what you're talking about, Kerri, just reach out. But you've got trade journals you're involved in. You've got associations that you're a part of. You may have a college in your town. I used to live in Columbia. And so we had access to Mizzou, Columbia College, Stevens, and a career center. There was tons of opportunity for partnerships there. So just take a look at what's available in your local area. And also just having an external trainer come in. I'm going to give a shout out to Brandy with Sage Culture Company. She is excellent when it comes to culture. There's another amazing trainer that I know. His name is John Thomas. I've used him for a number of things. He was a colleague of mine in the past. There's a ton of people out there who are very talented, and you'd be shocked at what it feels like to have an external trainer come in and teach your people. Your people are going to be like, I just went to school, and in the best of ways. I am going to Jefferson City in September to be a keynote speaker for a young professionals group. And when you bring an outside person in, like me, who's been doing this for years, or like Brandy that I mentioned, or like John, your team is like, okay, we're leveling up here. Like they're investing in us. And so we're going to pay attention and we're going to grow. And this is going to be a team building opportunity as well. Super important. And then I'd like for you to consider creating or expanding a dedicated training and development team responsible for planning, executing, and evaluating all learning initiatives. When I was at a finance company, a mortgage company years ago, and I was the HR director. And what I kept seeing through all of the data, whether it's performance reviews or engagement or satisfaction surveys or manager feedback, 360 reviews, was, oh my goodness sakes, we needed a learning and development program. And so I set out to create that program. And I ended up hiring a freaking marketing and branding communications expert on the team, 3 e-learning development people, a wellness coordinator, then another, then a culture person. We made this L&D team to be incredible. And we put on leadership development opportunities, women in leadership work. We built out all of our e-learning for our compliance training. We did innovation games to expand the horizons of the organization. We did succession planning, 360 reviews, and then put development plans in place around that, retooled our whole performance review process. It was such fulfilling work because employees were literally screaming for it. And so I understand you have to be in an organization of a certain size to get that. But let's say, for example, you're an organization that brings on a new fill in the blank, a new team member on your construction crew, a new loan officer, a new processor, a new client manager once a month or twice a week or whatever that is. Who's doing the training? If every single time you're looking around the room and everybody else is like, oh, not it, I've got to tend to my own workload, you are at a place where you're hiring enough that you're doing a disservice to your current team and to the people you're onboarding if you don't formalize this. And formalizing it could be this, it could be, all right, I've got somebody who's really good at their role, but they're looking for some increased responsibilities. So I'm going to pull some clients or some of their responsibilities off in their day-to-day tasks to free up 10% or 15%, 20% of their capacity to train new hires. And you can either give them a little pay bump for that, or you can bonus them every single time that they train, whatever it looks like to incentivize that work. But formalizing it and saying, this is our trainer, literally you become a step ahead immediately. So consider that dedicated team. Next, we're going to measure and evaluate training effectiveness. So we're going to establish KPIs for training. We're going to create feedback loops. And then I mentioned this earlier, post-training assessments. Those are going to be clutch if we're going to put a training program in place or you already have one. So we're going to establish the key performance indicators, the KPIs, to measure the effectiveness of training programs. We're going to look at employee engagement, retention rates, improve performance metrics over time. So we're going to evaluate where we're at. We're going to put the program in place or enhance the program, whatever it looks like. And then we're going to evaluate again and see what our key performance indicators are. Next, we're going to implement continuous feedback loops where employees can provide input on the effectiveness and relevance of the training programs, allowing for ongoing improvement. And we're going to conduct assessments after training sessions to evaluate knowledge retention and the practical application of new skills of the workplace. An easy way to do this, just a super simple baseline way to do this, is you're sitting your folks down for a training and you have every single one of them rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, how much they know about this, how much they know about this, and how much they know about this. Let's say you've got 3 key objectives that you're wanting to meet in the training. You're going to say, what do you feel like your knowledge and skills are in this area? Rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10 in this area. And then you're going to take that information. The trainer's going to take that, plot it in Excel doc, put it in Word, whatever, write it on a scroll. I don't care what you do with it. But then at the end of the course, whether it's 1 day, 6 sessions, whatever that is, you're going to ask those same employees, now, how much do you know about this? How much do you know about this? How much do you know about this? And you're going to make sure in the data, you're going to hope that you're going to see growth in each of those areas. If you don't, that's not a very effective training program. If you do, bingo, we're moving on. We're doing great. And then we are going to improve communication and transparency. A lot of times when it comes to learning and development, and I've mentioned this before, you may have these things in your mind or even in place, but we're not communicating about them. So we're going to give regular updates, transparent promotion criteria, and open our feedback channels. So we need to communicate regularly with employees about available training opportunities, career development resources, or any updates to any training programs that you have. This is just an easy win. We're just communicating about what you currently have and what you're planning on having. We're also going to clearly outline the criteria for promotions and advancements, ensuring that employees understand what is required and how they can achieve their career goals. If you don't say, here's where you're currently at, here's where you're trying to go, here's the gap analysis, like here's what you need to do to be able to get to this level. If you don't do that and they just say, hey, I want to be up for promotion, and you're like, no, ma'am, like not meeting it, they're just going to be dissatisfied and they're likely going to look for that growth elsewhere. And I mean elsewhere outside of the organization. So just clearly explaining in reality where you're at, where you're trying to go, and what they need to accomplish in between those two to be eligible is key and pretty simple, honestly, but something that a lot of us don't do. And then we want to maintain open channels for employees to voice their needs and concerns regarding training and development, ensuring that leadership is responsive to their input. We all know we can get free SurveyMonkey accounts. That's a tool I use all the time. If you want to, just put together, literally hop on OpenAI, ChatGPT, and type in, what 10 questions should I ask my organization to see if they feel like they have the learning and development opportunities they need? Type that in to ChatGPT. It will spit you out 10 questions. Take that over to SurveyMonkey, which, by the way, has its own AI tool, and you can use their surveys. But if you're uncomfortable with that, you can write your own questions. Throw that into a survey, copy that link, send an email out to all your people. Hey, we care so much about how you feel about the learning and development opportunities at our organization. We know that we're not perfect and we are looking to grow in this area. Please take this 2 7-minute survey, whatever it is, to help give us feedback so we can develop a great plan to move into 2025 strong, or whatever that looks like. And I'm telling you, you're winning because you're communicating. You're winning because you're asking them for their feedback. You're going to win even more when you actually use their feedback and implement a program. And your people are like, boom, going to know that you care about that. Their engagement satisfaction is going to go up. Not even talking about once you implement it and now you're actually investing in their learning and development. This stuff is gold and it's super simple. And it's something that you can implement straight away. The last thing that I'm going to do is to leverage technology and innovation. There are a ton of e-learning platforms out there. We're going to look at those. We're going to look at gamification and then virtual and augmented reality. So first off, I recommend that you utilize e-learning platforms. We've talked about this, LMS, learning management systems, the HR information systems, your HR payroll software, whatever that is. They can offer a wide range of courses and content that can be customized to meet the specific needs of your organization. There are tons of these platforms online. If you Google, I'm a law firm and I'm looking for a great learning management system for it's out there. Everybody has them. Also consider introducing gamification elements in training programs to make learning more engaging and interactive, potentially increasing participation and knowledge retention. I mentioned an easy one earlier. If you use an LMS and then you say, okay, when you create or when you complete all of your baseline courses we've assigned, you get a $25 gift card, a $100 gift card, whatever it is. And then for every course that you take above and beyond, you're going to get X, Y, and Z. Or maybe once you take 10 courses above and beyond, you're going to get blah, blah, blah. You feature it in the newsletter. You talk about who's, investing in their own personal development, add point systems to it, whatever it looks like. You gamify it a little bit. You'd be surprised. Some people could give a crap about that. Some people, that gives a ton of traction. And then consider exploring the use of VR, virtual reality, or AR, which is augmented reality, for immersive training experiences, particularly in areas requiring hands-on experience. Okay, by implementing these strategies, an organization can significantly improve its training and development opportunities, leading to a more skilled, engaged, and loyal workforce. My goal for today was to give you some practical ideas that you could walk away with. And my hope is there was at least one. I didn't want to overwhelm you, but I want to offer a lot of different things because it's going to reach different people at different places. So my hope is that you can implement just one of the things that I mentioned today. But, on the other side of that, if you're like, actually, Kerri, I think I'm ready to go all in on this. What do I do next? Just holler at me. Either myself or Tara, one of my colleagues, can sit down and do an assessment with you on your organization, or we can do it with your leadership team, whatever that looks like. And then we can build you out a plan of recommendations. We're not going to do anything that doesn't fit with your organization, but we're going to assess and then we're going to make recommendations to you. And then the ones that you're confident and comfortable with, we will build programs for them to be implemented on your teams. And you are going to be shocked at the value it brings as far as your employees being more engaged and satisfied because you're investing in this way. And you're going to get more effectiveness and more efficiency out of them because you're skill developing them. It is amazing when you invest in your organization. And a lot of these things could be little to no cost. It's just going to take a little elbow grease, maybe a little thought, maybe a couple of extra meetings, but it is worth it. And I highly recommend whether you use us or you implement these yourself. My goal is that we focus on upskilling, learning and development, growth and development, training and development, whatever the buzzword is for the day in the HR realm, that you are investing in your people and that they see that. Don't waste the chaos. Embrace it. Till next time.